Find other great podcasts like this one at Podmoth.network.
Hey, fellow truth seekers, I'm Justin.
And I'm Brandy, and together we'll be your guides on this spine-tingling journey through the unknown.
We dive headfirst into the eerie realms of cryptids, from Bigfoot to Loch Ness Monster.
And hold on tight, because we'll explore spine-chilling encounters with extraterrestrial beings and UFO sightings that will leave you questioning what's really out there.
Beyond the Shadows is not your average paranormal podcast. Our goal is simple: to shed light on the shadows that haunt our world and confront the unexplained with an open mind.
And for the skeptics, don't worry, we have something for you too. Our conspiracy theories will challenge your beliefs and make you question everything. So, if you're fascinated by the paranormal, yearn for chilling true crime stories, or crave the adrenaline rush of uncovering conspiracies,
join us on this hair-raising adventure as we journey beyond the shadows.
Find other great podcasts like this one at Podmoth.network.
Hey, what's up, you guys?
Hey, what's up, you guys?
I'm Kathryn.
And I'm Hayley.
And we are Saturdays for the Ghouls,
a Podmoth podcast.
How are you, Hayley?
Oh, on the city side, as you can hear, probably, because my voice is a little deeper than normal.
All right, well, you start feeling better. She's a trooper to come out and record today.
I know. And how are you, Kathryn?
Oh, okay. Just living life.
Living the dream.
I feel like I have the same response every time, because I can't complain, but I also could complain if I wanted to.
We thrive on complaints.
Here's the thing. I'm fighting my demons every day. That's all I can say.
Preach, sister.
Amen. I think that the only reason that Hayley's, I think we can record today is because it's not her topic today. It's my topic. And we're going to talk about something.
Exactly.
Yes. We're going to talk about, before I tell you the topic, it's something that what this topic falls under, the big umbrella, has always been intriguing to me and interesting. And we may have already talked about the large, big umbrella in a certain episode. But we have not, I don't think, talked about this exact scenario, okay? And then this exact scenario, I think that even Hayley might know things / know theories that come from this scenario. So, that being said, would you like to know our topic for the day?
You're banking a lot on my brain right now. I love that you actually think that I will contribute. I love that. I appreciate that you have the faith in my brain.
You don't have to contribute. I'm just saying that you might know things. It's usually their topics that I research and I'm like, Hayley knows nothing about this. I know that. But this one, I think you could know things about because it's happened in our lifetime. We experienced it as adults together. Not together, but we experienced it in our adult life. What do you want to take a stab at guessing? It literally could be anything, so it's okay if it's wrong.
Is it a Mandela effect? No. I have no idea.
Let's just hop right into it then. And the reason I said that you probably would have some sort of knowledge or remembrance of this, or maybe have heard theories about it, is because it happened in 2014. That's not that far long ago. 10 years, right? And we're going to talk today about Malaysia Airlines Flight 370.
Oh.
So you do know.
I've heard of it, but I literally know nothing about it other than that it disappeared.
Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 is one of the most disturbing unsolved aviation mysteries. And a lot of people have a lot of theories because it's still missing even 10 years later. Okay. So we're going to talk about what happened the day that the flight went out. And we're going to go through from beginning to end. I'm going to talk about a few technical terms when it comes to airplanes and stuff that I had to look up. So I'm going to try to speak in the most layman's terms or the most everyday kind of terms. It may not be, people who know things about airplanes, don't shoot me if I'm completely wrong. I learned all about this from online, so I did my best, okay? But there's a lot of technical phrases and technical terms that I'm trying to explain, and people may not know what those things are. Okay. Just as I get that caveat out of the way, we're going to throw it all the way back to March 8th, 2014. To the month, it's been 10 years. This flight was an international flight that took off from Kuala Lumpur International Airport, which is the airport in Malaysia. And it took off at 12:14 a.m. Malaysia time. Every time that I'm going to tell you a time, I selected Malaysia time, so it was all consistent with like how long they've been up in the air, okay?
Ooh.
They were flying to Beijing Capital International Airport in China, and their arrival was set to be at 6:30 a.m. This was a commercial flight. There was 227 passengers and 12 crew members. During this flight, at some point, and I'll get to more specifics, it completely disappeared off the radar. They were flying in a Boeing 777-200ER, and they were up, and the radar saw that they were over the South China Sea, and the last voice contact was made at 1:19 a.m. Malaysia time, and the pilot said, "Good night, Malaysia 370." Okay. On 122, around 1:22 a.m., it completely disappeared off the radar screen. No, they had the voice contact at 1:19, and then at 1:22, no one could see it on the radar. But the flight was still visible on a military radar. This radar is a secondary surveillance radar. It was a military radar. This radar can't really tell you like the exact location of it, but it's like a indicator of whether the thing in the air is a friend or a foe, which is why it's called a military radar. Okay. So at that point, they knew that the plane had made a sharp turn on its course. And so it was going northeast, and then it made a westward path across the Malaysia Peninsula. And on the map, it really looks like they just took a U-ey. Like they flipped a U-ey. They were going the other direction. We don't know why. By 2:22 a.m., they left the range of the military radar while over the Andaman Sea, which was 230 miles away from Penang Island. So at this point, there was a multinational, many different people were trying to search for this aircraft. Malaysia, China, Australia. There were lots of countries and people trying to help find this aircraft. This is and has been the most expensive aviation search ever. Began where the last signal was detected on the military surveillance on the Gulf of Thailand and the South China Sea. They extended the search to the Strait of Malacca and the Andaman Sea. From satellite communication, they were still able to ping the flight up until 8:19 a.m. And that flight was over the Indian Ocean at that point. You might be asking yourself, Kathryn, you said that they lost it on the radar. They said they lost communication. What on earth is the satellite communication that you are talking about? I'm so happy you asked.
You're welcome.
There's a satellite data unit on an aircraft, which is referred to as an SDU. This connects to the ERMSAT, that might have said that wrong, network, the ERMSAT network, and will transmit a log on request with the ground station, and then the ground station is going to acknowledge that log on request. The aircraft will maintain a data link with the satellite for data and phone calls, and the data link will connect with the aircraft on the ground station via satellite, which translate into a frequency. I know this is a lot more than you need to know, but it then amplifies the signal. The ground station is connected to the telecommunications network, and it allows messages to be sent and received from other locations. The last regular comms, as we know, was around 1:19. Okay. It was then at some point between 107 and 2:03 that the ground stations sent a message and it was not responded to. And then again at 2:25, the aircraft fell off the radar. Investigators assumed that it was because the satellite was restarted after some sort of power interruption, which is why there was some sort of log-on attempt to the satellite. So between 2:25 and 8:19, there were 2 calls made to the satellite, but none were answered, and all responses were automated. The ground station sent hourly messages to the flight, and none of the communications were able to communicate any kind of explicit information of the location or anything. But the final transmission was at 8:19, and it was a log-on attempt, which means that potentially it was from a power, like losing power and coming back on. And the aircraft did not respond to that message from ground station at 9:15. So at that point, that was truly the last signal that they had from the airplane, which was at 8:19. Investigators believe that the message was made when restarting after the aircraft had run out of fuel and the aircraft's auxiliary power unit was started. And that's why they think that there was like that last long on message. It was not it didn't have anything to do with like somebody pushing a button. It was an automatic thing because it's likely that they were out of fuel by 8 a.m. considering they were only supposed to be in the air until 6:30 a.m.
Oh.
So I took a quote from an article that I read, and it said that the day after the disappearance, staff at Ermasat, which remember that's the place that does the log-on attempts signals, right? Reviewed the log of communications between their satellite network and Flight 370. It was discovered that they continued attempting contact for several hours on an automated process to contact after the control was lost. This is referred to as an interrogation. Okay, so if quote, the ground station hasn't received any contact from a terminal for 1 hour, the ground station transmits a log-on interrogation message, which is informally referred to as a ping. Okay. And then an active terminal will respond back. And the entire process of this ping and respond back is considered a quote handshake. Okay. And the reason why I'm telling you is I'm going to tell you the log of the pings and the handshakes and the log-on attempts, just so you understand what these people were going through when they were looking at the readout. Okay. So 4 emergency locators or ELTs on this airplane. The first ELT was a fixed locator on the fuselage. This is only activated during any kind of sudden deceleration, like the plane like slowing down quickly, right?
Yeah.
The second one is a portable on the front of the aircraft that must be manually activated by a switch. So someone has to go and flip it on or flip it off if they're having some sort of technical problems. There are a handful of reasons why this would stop working, which would be damage during a crash, shielding an aircraft wreckage or terrain, and then submersion in deep water. The third and fourth ELT is portable, and it's on the front slide rafts. These are only activated once the slide rafts are inflated and touching the water. They will emit a radio signal that can be detected by satellite, but they are only made to work on or near water surface, not below it. So if it sinks, it's going to have a hard time working, like I said. No signals were ever detected from the ELT from Flight 370. None of them were initiated. None of them were turned on because they never received any signals.
Okay.
So that means there was no sudden deceleration. Nobody switched the activated switch if they were having problems. And that means that the slide rafts were not deployed. Although they were over an ocean, right? They were over the Indian Ocean. So all of those kind of seem weird. So I'm going to give you the play-by-play that the satellite received in regards to the pings and the handshakes, okay?
Okay.
As we know, at 2:25, the aircraft had the first handshake, which was a log-on request from Flight 370 registered as an active terminal. At 3:39, ground to air traffic phone call was acknowledged and unanswered. So they sent a call up, no one answered. At 3:41, there was a second handshake. This was a normal handshake. At 4:41, this was a third handshake, normal handshake. And we know it's a handshake when it's pinged and the ping was received on the other end. It's like they send pings back to each other once they ping, okay? At 5:41, fourth handshake, normal handshake. 6:41, fifth handshake, normal handshake. At 7:13, there was a ground to aircraft telephone call, acknowledged but unanswered. Again. At 8:10, sixth handshake, normal handshake. At 8:19, seventh handshake, but it was not a normal handshake. It was a log-on request from the aircraft, followed by the acknowledgement of 4 other transmissions from ground station. At 8:19, which I know these sound like they're right next to each other. It's because one happened at 8:19:29 seconds, and this one was 8:19:37 seconds. This is still the 7th handshake, and it's the log-on acknowledgement transmitted. And then this was the final transmission received from Flight 370. At 9:15, there was an unsuccessful ping or an unsuccessful handshake. 3 handshake requests came from the ground and nothing responded from the aircraft. Like I said, these are automated things that would ping and respond. It's not someone would ping, if that makes sense. It's not someone would respond. And so that 9:15 is not responded to. And as we know, the last ping that was responded to was at 8:19. A joint investigation team was created to analyze the communications between Flight 370 and the ground station. They focused on 2 different parameters. One was the burst timing offset. And this is, quote, the difference between when a message is sent from ground station and the response is received. This measure can be analyzed and determined between the distance of the satellite and the aircraft. Then the other thing is going to be the burst frequency offset. And this is, quote, the difference caused by a Doppler shift, which is the change in frequency in the wave relation to the observer. This is the difference between the expected and the received frequency of transmission. So this measure can be analyzed to determine where the BTO rings or the burst timing offset rings were. So they're able to basically find on a map target. They're able to make these rings dependent on where those handshakes and pings were when they reviewed this information. So they were able to make like a set of rings that this is probably the location in which we lost them. Okay. And I know that's really technical, and I'm not even sure if I explained it, but I tried. But that's what I understand. And I saw a picture of a map where they have a target on a map, and I think that's what these 2 parameters help them find. By looking at those parameters, they were able to deduce that the aircraft remained operational until at least 8:19, which was 7 hours after the final contact was made. The original flight was only supposed to be 5.5 hours, so the fuel was likely at that point depleted completely or at least running out. The 7th handshake, which was that last handshake at 8:19, was a log-on request. And this is most likely able to determine a search area of where they might be able to locate it. The investigation team determined that this handshake was a result of power failure due to running out of fuel. This is also known as like a flame out, which is what they call it when an airplane runs out of fuel. According to how much fuel they should have had, this would have been almost 4 minutes after flame out. Boeing and Malaysia Airlines conducted numerous of end-flight scenarios with their Boeing 777 simulators. These scenarios involve flame out in one engine before the other without any input from the cockpit. These scenarios also result in aircrafts entering a spiraling low bank turn with the aircraft entering into the water at a relatively short distance from the last engine flameout. So this means that if the pilot had control of the plane, it was possible that he could have kept gliding for 120 miles. But it is to believe that the plane was not under control in this case. And the impact of the plane would have been 12 to 23 miles from the start of flameout instead, which is not very far, which means they probably impacted the water very quickly. So 16 months. Sorry.
I was like, but I'm just thinking about
the sensor, the ELT.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm thinking that maybe because it impacted so ferociously, it may not have had the chance to.
Yeah. That's fair.
I'm not sure. And then I also don't know, do the ELTs work after there's no fuel? If there's no fuel in the plane? I'm not sure. That being said, we know that none of them went off. That's what they say, right? That's what the people who did the investigation say. We have to assume that they're correct. Okay. So that's the initial investigation that they did. And that's all the information they found. They didn't find a plane. They didn't find any pieces of a plane. They didn't find any bodies. There was 227 people plus 12 crew members. So almost 240 people, right? They found nothing. This plane seemingly disappeared. 16 months after departure on July 29th, 2015, there was a right wing flaperon. I think that's how they say it, flaperon. And it was discovered on French Island. This is also called Reunion Island. This was 2,300 miles from the part of the Indian Ocean that was being searched. Over the next year and a half, there were 26 more pieces of a plane. It's not necessarily that it's of this plane, but they were found on the shores of Tanzania, Mozambique, South Africa, and Madagascar. And Mauritius. 3 pieces of these 26 were confirmed that they were part of Flight 370. The other 17 of the pieces were likely to be a part of the plane, but there was no way to confirm that. There was only a way to confirm that 3 of them definitely were. Of the 3, 2 pieces were part of the interior cabinet, and it suggested that the plane broke into pieces either in the air or upon impact with the water. And then these pieces, upon impact, broke up and then floated to these islands of these other places like Tanzania, Mozambique, South Africa, and Madagascar. There's a quote here that says that study of the Reunion wing flaperon and a piece of the right wing that was found in Tanzania showed that the plane had not undergone a controlled descent, meaning that he did not have the 120 miles to glide. He probably had 12 to 23 miles down. Some investigators say that the plane would have impacted the water almost vertically, which means like it would have taken a nosedive into the water. After modeling, and they were saying that this was more of a, it was hard to tell without more physical evidence, but that's what they said. But again, it's too hard to confirm that's exactly what happened. And we didn't find a lot more evidence up until in January of 2017. The search for Flight 370 by Malaysia, Australia, and China ended. So they were like, we can't find anything else. We don't want to search anymore. I don't know exactly what they said, but they were not willing to search anymore for this plane. But an American company, it's not a government company, it's like a independently owned company called Ocean Infinity, was allowed to continue searching on their own until May of 2017, which gave them another 5 months, basically. In July of 2018, the final report was released by the Malaysian government that, quote, a mechanical malfunction was deemed to be extremely unlikely, and the change in flight pattern and flight path likely resulted from a manual input. But the investigators could not determine why Flight 370 disappeared. But it is a little weird that the Malaysian government was just like not interested in continuing the search, given that there were 227 people on board. I'd assume that maybe they'd search for longer than that, but I guess if you're not finding anything, you're not finding anything. And that's where the search for Malaysia 370 ended. At this point, there's nobody currently in the middle of a search, and nobody knows what happened. But as the government said, they don't think that it was an accident. They think that it was done by a manual input. What do you think that means? That means that somehow someone on the board of the flight, that on the crew, changed the path. Okay. So there's a lot of theories flying around on why and how this flight disappeared. And there are, for so many reasons, there's so many theories, but if you have seen any kind of flight crash or anything, even if there's people that are on board, there's 220 people on board, right? Not one of them decided to take their phone off airplane mode and try to call a family member. Not one of them tried to do something to let someone know what's happening on the flight.
Right.
You know what I mean? It doesn't seem likely that would be the case. And that's why there's so many theories, because I know that it's a rule, you're not supposed to use your phone, but in these cases, sometimes we do find that people tried to call like their moms or their husbands or what have you. So
Right.
obviously one theory is mechanical failure, but it's just unlikely that they flew so far in the other direction for so long that there was any kind of mechanical failure. The next theory was that there was some sort of hijacking of the plane, that somebody was on there and forced them to make a U-turn and crash the plane. That being said, it's a possibility. But there's a quote from the article that I was reading, and it made a lot of sense. It said that no individual or group has claimed responsibility for that, and it's unlikely that hijackers would have flown a plane into the southern Indian Ocean, and generally they want to be known if they're hijacking because they have a reason, right? They don't
Yeah.
just hijack it to just hijack it. They generally want it to be known that they are going to hijack this plane and for what reason. Some people also believe that potentially it was shot down by a missile because of the fact that there was so much debris found on different islands. But after they looked at the debris and they cross-examined it, it seemed unlikely that there was any evidence that this was shrapnel from a missile or that it was projectiles or that this was shot down. So the debris did not resemble any kind of like shrapnel, or the fact that it didn't have any damage onto it that would say that it had been blown down, shot down, okay? Now, the next the next theory is what I believe probably happened and a lot of other people believe, and that it was a pilot who was basically in the process of doing a murder suicide. So the pilot basically, and I'll tell you how people think that in just a second. But here's a quote. In 2016, New York Magazine reported that the pilot on his home flight simulator has flown over the southern Indian Ocean less than a month before the plane vanished. The simulated flight closely matched the missing aircraft's final path. This revelation, in addition to the release of the greater information about the pilot's personal life, added to the notion of a premeditated sort of attempt here. And so I was on a Reddit forum for an exorbitant amount of time looking through all these theories that people have. And basically the most common plot that people have come up with in their head here, if it is a murder suicide, is that the pilot got the first office, which is the person who is in there with him, right? Either got him out of the cockpit or drugged him of some sort so that he would fall asleep, and then depressurized the cabin to incapacitate everyone else while he was using a oxygen mask. So basically everyone would have been passed out and he would have been alive and well in the cockpit as long as he had the mask on, okay? And then he made his sharp left turn to the west and he went basically in and out of the Malaysian airspace and then circled Penang, which is possibly so that he could take a final look at his hometown, which is where he was from. And then he flew south as far as he could towards the southern Indian Ocean before he ran out of fuel and crashed the plane, having it sink to the bottom of the ocean so no one could find it. And someone else mentioned that if he had his oxygen mask on at one point, he probably likely set the plane on autopilot and took his mask off as well so that he was out and everybody was out until the plane crashed. Now, it's pretty heavy. That's a pretty heavy theory here, but it does seem to be the only theory that has any sort of backing to it, considering he took the same exact simulation on his home flight simulation program on his computer. It seems like the most likely reason of why the Malaysia 370 flight disappeared. And the reason why they can't find it is that potentially there's nothing left. Now that we've seen what happened to the people who went down to the Titanic, what do you think would happen? Basically vertically entering the water at such speed.
Yeah.
I can't imagine anything good happened there. So
no.
And especially after what we know now about pressurized cabins in underwater. I don't know. I don't know if that's the case, but it could have done exactly the same thing that cabin did with the Titanic people, which would have made it very hard to get any kind of evidence, as it was very hard to get any kind of evidence for the Titanic people. So that's all I have. Sorry to end it on such a harsh note.
I know, I'm like, ouch, damn.
Okay, but I don't know if it's something that would help you feel better about it. It didn't go missing in the air. You know what I mean? There was a reason why the plane is gone. Like people, I think that when I said we've talked about the umbrella of like flights disappearing, we talked about it probably during our Bermuda Triangle episode. The OGs will know. But a flight's not going to disappear midair. That's just unlikely. And so there has to be a reason. And whether it was a hijacking or it was shot down by some sort of missile or it was a murder suicide, I think that it's important to know that it's probably not disappeared. And I don't know if that's more helpful or not for someone who doesn't want to fly or something. Would you prefer to have just disappeared or gone to sleep and just never come back? I don't know.
That's the sad part is I was like, yeah, it sucks. Like, it's really sad. But I was like, at least if that theory is true, they were asleep and probably didn't feel anything.
Exactly. And I think that that's another reason why there were no attempts to call family members or call for
Yeah,
help.
that would explain why, yeah.
That's another reason why I believe it. Unless he knew something was mechanically wrong and he did it in so that people were not panicked, maybe that's why he did it. That could be another reason. Maybe it wasn't premeditated, but he did it and because there was no way he was going to make it back. I have no idea. I don't know. Because he very well could have flown back to the airport that he came out of because he flew past Malaysia again. So it's not like that. The other reason is that you think that it's probably premeditated is probably because he could have stopped if he turned around. If he couldn't make it forward for some reason, if he turned around, he could have landed on Malaysia again. But he didn't. He flew over it. That being said, I'm sorry for everyone that was on the flight.
And that's scary.
It is scary.
Thank you, Kathryn.
Bringing you a depressing episode. I'm sorry.
And it's not depressing. It's just it gets the word out too, like in case you didn't know about it.
Okay, so I was never under the impression that we had ever found like a resolution or like any theory was founded to have any kind of backing behind it before I researched it. And so I was surprised when I researched it as well. And I don't know, maybe I don't know. I have a fear of flying, so I don't even know why I did this topic because it doesn't make me want to get on an airplane anytime soon. That's for sure.
I also have a very strong fear of flying. So, yeah, this is great. It's great to know that that's another possibility to happen.
I guess I was just under the impression that it was going to help us feel better and not worse. But now that I'm thinking about it and I say that out loud, I don't know what I was thinking.
That's like me talking about SWs for you.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, next week we'll be talking.
But I even have the same fears as you do, so it's not like I did any favors to myself either.
I know.
I just fucked both of us over. It's fine.
That's fine. No, I just have a PowerPoint presentation and everything.
You show me pictures of like people who thought they saw SWs.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm sorry that I fucked up flying even more. I did it with good intentions. I thought it was going to help. Okay, so here's the other thing. This doesn't happen often. You'd know if something like this was happening all the time. That being said, it only takes one flight, right?
Yeah, we're fine, Kathryn. We're fine.
Okay. Anyways, that's all I got for you. Hayley, what are we talking about next week? Do you know?
I have some ideas, but I don't want to say anything yet.
Love it. Okay, let's do something just a little less like lighthearted to stop me from spiraling about airplanes. Do you have anything good that's happened to you in the last week? So we can tell that you'd like to tell the spooky babes. He's like putting me on the spot.
Not much.
Can you tell us your high of March? I'll start. My high of March was starting to record again for the podcast.
Oh, I see.
I'm not trying to lead you into that answer. I'm not trying to make you say something you don't believe. I just wanted to say something like hi so that people don't think that we're trying to ruin their flight experience and then be sad and depressing.
Here's the thing. I don't do much, so I do a lot
every night.
No, not every night.
Most nights.
Thursday to Sunday is usually when I'm out.
That's most nights.
Let me think. Honestly, like the best thing that is, I guess, geared more toward myself and it's not really anyone else's is the podcast. So I'm going to piggyback off yours and say recording again and whatnot. And I'm excited to just do whatever, whenever.
Do you have anything to tell Spooky Babes before we go? Must do it in a British accent.
It's a Wednesday. It's not Tuesday no more.
Tuesday.
Spooky Babes, don't
Not to do it in an accent. You can if you want.
I say, don't let the flight stories freak you out from traveling or flying. Even though I definitely will probably use this as an excuse, but I'll still suck it up and do it if I need to. The world's scary, and we just gotta take it a day at a time. And just exactly, just one day at a time. And there was this, I forgot where I saw it. I think it was at some doctor's office that I was at. But there's a quote that says, live every day as if it was your last.
Oh, yeah.
And then I got really depressed because I definitely don't do that. But
here's the thing. The amount of days or nights that I felt like I wish it was my last are not as many as the days that I wish I was living like it was my last. I have definitely been in the headspace of I don't want to live like it's my last. It was just like, could it be just my last? I'm tired of it. I'm tired of it, Grandpa. But
it's too damn bad. Yeah.
It is too damn bad. So you might as well live like it's your last so that you can like say you've lived it to the fullest whenever your brain is capable of doing that. And that's within reason. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I don't know if that made sense.
We love you. Bye.
Oh, okay. Spooky Babes, I am so glad that we're back on the pod for good now. Maybe until the holidays, but you know what I mean. We're back. We're back and we're better than ever. I don't know what I'm saying anymore. Anyway, Spooky Babes, we care about you and we appreciate you, and we hope that if you're in a bad headspace, you can hang out with us for an hour and be in a better headspace after. And you matter. The world's a better place with you in it. And we will see you
in your nightmares.
Peace out, Girl Scout.
Peace Boy out, Scout. Girl Scout. Boy Scout.
Spooky Babe Scout. Spook Scout. Spooky Babe is a gender neutral term.
It is.
I would like to reiterate that for any of the newbies. Spooky Babe is a gender neutral term. Okay, love you. Bye.